Thank you all. The next speaker actually needs no introduction. He's the pioneer and the visionary of the Indian IT industry, one of the co-founders of Infosys. He was the vice chairman of Infosys between 2011 and 14, and also the managing director for between 2011 and 14. And he won a whole number of awards, including heading India's Apex Industry Chamber, which is CII, between 2013 and 14. And he was also the co-chair of World Economic Forum in Davos in January 2014. Mr. Gopalakrishnan is now the chairman of Axilor Ventures, and most importantly, in my favorite, he invests in promoting research on brain sciences, aging-related disorders, and healthcare. Please give a big hand in welcoming Mr. Kris Gopalakrishnan. 2 days back, Time magazine released the top 100 in AI around the world, right? And if you would want to look for the top 60 in the Indian IT industry, you would have to go to this place called Itihasa, this website, which is Itihasa Digital, which is an initiative and project started by Kris, and the book that he's written, Against All Odds, the India IT story, it actually came from that project, right? So, sir, why don't you give the genesis and the origin of the book and how it came about and about Itihasa?
Thank you, Jayanth, and thank you, the organizers, for giving me this opportunity to interact with you today. The genesis of Itihasa project started when I stepped down from Infosys in 2014. I am proud of what Indian IT services industry has achieved, has done. If you look at the top 10 IT services companies in the world, 5 are Indian. World-class companies, right? It has created an industry of $230 billion, mostly exports, 5 million people employed in the industry, and seen today as what India can do. The whole Digital India program, the whole startup movement, all has taken inspiration, have used the workforce from there. So I felt that one of the ways in which I can give back is to capture the stories from the leaders who made this indeed happen. And I was very fortunate to get the support of people like F.C. Kohli, Ramadurai, Asim Premji, Narayan Murthy, Nandan Nilekani, a whole lot of people who actually made it happen. We interviewed them, captured that. It's available on the Itihasa website. After that, some people told us, the reach should be much better.
Right.
If you present it as a book, and so then the book came into being.
Okay, so the book evolved as a synthesized, condensed version of all the stories and the anecdotes that you were capturing in Itihasa.
I wanted to actually create a new format for capturing history.
Okay.
And if you look at the Itihasa website, you will find that you can read it as series of interviews with the people.
Right.
You can look at actually all the people who talk about the genesis of TCS or a genesis of Wipro.
Or NASSCOM.
NASSCOM, etc. So you can look at, by timeline, by people, by organizations, by subject. So it was a way for capturing what would be a very linear format.
Linear format, yes.
But then some people wanted linear format. I said, okay.
Nice. Sir, you're a big believer and advocate of, capturing history, the stories and anecdotes. You say that, we have to align with the future, but first we have to understand the history. And this particular session is about the future. It's called India's next IT and tech story, right? So, for the audience here and for me as well, can you give a framework in the context of, IT industry and Itihasa and your book, which captures historical trends? How do we use the historical events to, forecast the future. I mean, they say history repeats itself. In the context of IT industry, can you help us understand?
So there are two, three threats to this. First and foremost, India has become the base for providing STEM talent for the world.
Correct.
And because of technology, this talent doesn't have to travel. The work travels to where the talent is.
Right.
And you will see, especially in Bangalore, dotted around and in this space, the WeWork space, you will find that multinational corporations are doing their R&D, their development, their IT work, sitting here in India. And the employees of the industry are really global people. 25% of the world's STEM talent, 25%, over the next few years will be from India. That is a huge opportunity for us, not just to create employment, but also understand how the world operates and influence the way the world operates. That's something that we need to take advantage of. Second, we have seen the Digital India
Correct.
movement. We have connected about 1.4 billion people, whether they are educated, not educated, city, rural, anywhere in India. During COVID, we connected India again digitally, and the business continued, work continued, life continued. Now imagine, I'm told, and I'm trying to get good data on that, there are still 3.5 billion people in the world who are unconnected. 3.5 billion people in the world who are unconnected. The story of India, the experience of India, what we have been able to do will clearly benefit the 3.5 billion people, getting them connected. Again, this is an opportunity for us in India to take what we have done in India to the world. And these are examples. So we talk about from India to the world, and in the IT field, in the area of digitization, we have an opportunity. And the last, and I'll stop, otherwise I can go on. The last, we all now talk about AI, its impact, generative AI, all of you know about it. Now, what should the regulatory framework, what should be the role of the government, how should private sector look at this new technology that will have significant impact? It requires us to innovate responsibly. It also requires a regulatory framework in order for ordinary people, there's 8 billion people in the world, to trust this technology. So clearly, again, there's an opportunity. Now here, we are not at there, but we are framing our regulatory rules and regulations and rules, and here is an opportunity for us to again lead the world.
Correct. And India's data protection bill has come out a few weeks back.
Definitely.
Yeah. And last year, sorry.
And sorry, so since you mentioned data protection bill,
Right.
I had a role to play in the non-personal data framework, and that I'm hoping that will also be implemented. That will have a significant say in how AI is used, because that's from where you get the data.
Great. In fact, I have a specific question on data, but I'll get to that. But it's very interesting what you mentioned, sir, that India is a STEM talent powerhouse to the world. 2 weeks back, I was in Geneva, and I was speaking to some senior folks in UN, and we were looking at working at the intersection of mental health and AI. And we were also speaking to some of our colleagues in US, and what I hear was, in US, in the Valley, and even in Europe, if you're an AI engineer or a data scientist, or anything to do in AI, and if you have an Indian name, your resume goes on top of the pile. And this I've heard from, Swiss people and French people, actually. So you talked about the human capital and in India. I mean, I heard you say in one of your talks that we are second to none when it comes to talent, especially in the IT and the technology sector, and I can't agree with you more. And at the same time, now with generative AI that's come off this one, even in Itihasa, one of your opinion pieces talks about citizen developers, how Gen AI helps citizen developers. in India, we have over 5 million plus, workforce in the IT and the tech space, right? How do you see the coexistence of, the human knowledge workers, the human capital, and the artificial intelligence capital, the coexistence and thriving going forward? What is your view on that?
See, technology and innovation has been part of the history of the world. From, from the beginning,
Right.
there has been continuous innovation, and certain jobs are lost and new jobs are created. So, with the introduction of the automobile, right, powered vehicles, horses, horse buggies, and the
carts.
carts, the person who's driving the horse and all that, all those jobs were lost.
Yes.
I read somewhere saying that the New York City stunk so much that people couldn't even walk.
Okay.
Right? So there had to be people to clean up all that, etc. All those jobs were gone, right? So this is the history of the world. Now we have to find out which jobs will still be relevant, which new jobs will be created. So prompt engineer is a new job category that got created. And as long as individuals, we stay relevant, we keep up with technology changes, we will have a job. If we are not relevant, we will not have. Organizations are the same. If you have a solution that's relevant to the new world,
right,
you will be in business.
Right.
Otherwise, you will probably fail and wither away, right? So I feel that our job is to understand this technology, understand how this will be applied, figure out what jobs are relevant. So data cleansing, training the model. There's so many new job categories that will be created, right? You'll have to label the data. All kinds of jobs will be created.
Correct. And I have to agree, but in my personal opinion, sir, I authored a book called AI Rising, India's Artificial Intelligence Growth Story.
So you should be answering this question.
So I'll just give a little bit of my viewpoint. And I come from the telecom industry. I've launched a bunch of Motorola and Nokia phones. Today, this phone has a camera, it has navigation, it has speakers. So ideally speaking, all those industries should have been out, right? But then, if you look at people who are in the camera industry, lens industry, audio industry, what they've done is they've upped the quality. I mean, the DSLRs are still in place. Okay, so an average photograph that's taken is of a higher quality. Okay, the Boses, the Sony Ericsson, the Sonys, they've brought down high fidelity sound, on your headphones. So my observation is that while technology comes and takes over some jobs and does some takes over some work, the quality as such goes up. Okay, an average citizen today has better access than the richest person a century ago in the world. So that the quality of our life and our existence goes up.
So the power of technology is democratization of access and democratization of use of technology. So 1978, 79 is when Apple introduced the Apple Mac II, Apple II computer, not the Mac, Apple II computer. IBM introduced PC in 1981. That democratized computing and made computing available to at least everybody in the business and some people at home, etc. The mobile phone further democratized and gave us all access to one or more computers in our hand, right?
Right.
So the true power of something that is widely deployed is the democratization of that. So AI will democratize the access to powerful tools in the hands of ordinary individuals. And that's the power of technology. And those technologies that will democratize it in a big way are the ones that are going to succeed in unprecedented ways and change the world and will change the world.
Couldn't agree more. So taking a step back, a personal story of yours. You mentioned the way you got into computer science was, one fine day in IIT Madras, you were going on your cycle with 2 or 3 books on your carrier, and they were computer science books because you were intrigued by the space, and a gentleman stopped you and talked to you about those books, and he suggested that you should go join computer science engineering. And that gentleman happened to be Professor Mahabla, right? And you mentioned that you happened to be at the right place at the right time. This was, a few decades back. Fast forward to 2023, okay? Let's say a 19, 20-year-old Kris Gopalakrishnan in IIT Madras on a bicycle again between, Godavari, Jamuna, and, Godavari, Jamuna, and Nalanda hostels. If he were going on a bicycle today, what books would he be carrying on the carrier? Who would be the gentleman who would be stopping him? And what would that gentleman say, you go pursue this now?
I hope if there are students here and if your teacher stops you on the corridor, you listen to the teacher and act on it. If I had not acted on that, I wouldn't be sitting here. So if there are students here, please do. Listen to your teachers. At least sometimes they can change your life. Having said that, see, today, I will tell you my own interest. There's so many areas of change in the world today. So many areas of change, and previous session was with Naga, and I would recommend that you read his book because it's full of stories about entrepreneurship at the grassroots level in the remotest part of India. So if I were in that 20-year-old, I wish I was, but I'm not. The next 30 years are going to be even better than the last 30 years. Even better than, because we are going to, see, when we were young, there was no way we could have imagined where we would be here today. No way we would have imagined. But today you have the opportunity to influence that. You have the confidence to make it happen. Look at the startup ecosystem.
Yes.
They're creating companies that can beat the best of the world, right? You have the support in terms of money. The world is ready to fund India. Look at how G20 that's happening in Delhi is attracting, delegations which are unprecedented. With President Biden, it seems there are 800% delegation. And technology will drive that change. One of the prime drivers of this will be technology. So if I were you, understand what is happening, understand the changes that are happening, understand the technologies that will make those changes indeed happen, and most important, what is your role going to be in making that future happen? You can now think about it, you can imagine that, and you can play a role. You have examples of people who have done that. And so you must actually give it serious thought.
Thank you, sir. And taking one step ahead, you won an award for corporate governance in 2011 or 2013. In the book also, you mentioned that after the Satyam issue and the challenge of corporate governance, the entire IT industry of India actually bounced back stronger, putting in guardrails around corporate governance. On that topic, currently with the tech startup ecosystem, hyper-growing extremely fast, and we are seeing, a couple of them fumble and stumble as well. Both for the investors and the tech startup, founders and the entrepreneurs, especially around corporate governance, what would be your advice and recommendation in terms of balancing both hyper-growth and responsible growth as well?
See, majority of businesses are good businesses. Majority of good business leaders are good business leaders. They really want to run a company legally, ethically, produce products that customers will buy, lead a normal life. That's majority of people anywhere, actually. And there will be a small minority who want to get around the system, who want to cheat, etc. That's again the reality of life.
Right.
But the responsibility of the majority is to build trust in the system, and not just run their businesses legally and ethically, but also create an environment and ecosystem that increases confidence and trust. I think it's very, very important for us to realize, and that's the reason why the Satyam fiasco brought industry together. All the companies, all the large companies decided that they will not take employees from Satyam, not take advantage. They will not take customers from Satyam. We will let the entity stay together and run to its logical conclusion, which luckily for it, Tech Mahindra acquired Satyam, and today it's part of that. But the key is the majority must do everything in their own company, but also in the industry. And this is my message to startups actually, to make sure that the trust of ordinary people, the trust of society in the system, in the business, in the industry is enhanced by every single transaction they make. I think it's very, very important, especially in a developing country like India.
Thank you, sir. One question before I open the stage for Q&A. India's, becoming an icon for digital public infrastructure. IT public infrastructure at population scale, be it Aadhaar or UPI. Okay, then the ONDC, the ABDM, and even the Namayatri built on the Beacon protocol. Okay, when you're building at such pace, and even our G20 summit, one of the key themes is data for development. We need to draw a balance between data privacy and security at population scale, but at the same time deriving maximum value out of innovation on data. In what role does India have to play at the world, in a combination of both the public infrastructure and data privacy, sir?
So, we have to create systems that are built with privacy in mind, that are built with a way of getting consent for use of data. Today, without data, you will not probably get many of the services that you are getting. So, of course, it is in your interest to provide that data, but you want to be assured that it will be properly used. It will be only used for the purpose that it was collected or you gave consent for. And that's what is important. So the rules that India is framing is built on these principles. The principles of, data needs to be collected to provide services, but data will be collected with consent. It will be used for the purpose that it's collected for. And this framework and the technology that's necessary to build such systems, these are the important contributions that India is making to the world.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe that this is something that we need to propagate to other countries, and again, made in India for the world.
Correct. And the framework that Kris is talking about is data empowerment and protection architecture built by the DEPA, built by the same iSport team that built the UPI. And back in 2017, as a consulting firm, when GDPR was launched around the world, we did a comparison of all the frameworks available out there, and DEPA came out way ahead. Just like in pollution, how Bharat standards are way ahead, in automobile pollution as compared to Euro standards or anywhere in the world. Even in data privacy and consent management, DEPA is far ahead. I'll open the stage for questions from audience.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Riaz.
Yeah.
In a single sentence, how do you make sure that an organization follows value system, in the sense all stakeholders from top to down? How do you make, what is the tip for that? Because if one spoke of a wheel gone, the entire integrity will go for a toss. So how do we make sure that everybody in the stakeholders follow the true value system?
So first and foremost, lead by example. Leadership at the top will have to walk the talk, have to follow the value system. There can't be different value systems for the top and the bottom. So everybody has the same value system. And then you enforce it through systems and processes. The instantiation of the value systems are the systems and processes in the company. So, when you submit your expense report, the system validates and says you're traveling economy, if that's the rule, right? So the leadership has to also walk the talk. If the rule is that everybody travels economy, everybody travels economy, and then the rules are created to enforce that. That's it.
Yeah, value system has to be in the DNA of the culture of the company. It has to
And
be
in the
embedded that
systems
way.
and processes that you have.
Yeah.
Is that the only way, or is that the only way? Because leave the top level. Let's say we have to follow.
No, that won't work. According to me, leave the top and
No.
No. They have to follow. Even leaders are following, but down the line they are not following. What do we do?
So then,
Systems
see,
and processes.
because in a large company you have to have systems and processes. You have to build systems too. Smaller company you can do that in an ad hoc manner, in a a human driven manner. You can do check and balance manually. But in the large company, it has to be through systems and processes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question. The gentleman next to the
Hi.
camera.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Rajiv. So, sir, on one hand, we hear that 80% of the engineering graduates are unemployable. Even Infosys and, people put them through such a rigorous training. And on the other hand, we have, as you said, that we see tens of thousands of people going overseas and doing well. So how do you, resolve this dichotomy where 80% of the engineering graduates are not employable, they don't have the skills or knowledge, and on the other hand, 25% of the global talent will be from India?
Yeah. So,
Soft skills.
it's a very interesting question and interesting. I don't want to say contradiction, but it's how we manage this conundrum in some sense. So, most of academia is all about generic training in technologies that may be one generation behind. So when the IT industry talks about not being ready, two things. One, they may not be taught on the latest in technology. Two, they may not be taught in the areas that an industry is interested in. For example, I don't know of any computer science program that teaches testing or maintenance, right? But a lot of the work that an IT company does is maintenance, testing, etc. So there is a difference. Now, then you asked, how come people are going abroad? They are going abroad and populating, the best institutions in the world, because these are the best from India. India is a large country. We graduate, I think, 20 lakh, I don't have the exact number, very large number of engineers, etc. And even if the 25% goes abroad or 10% goes abroad, that's a huge number.
Right. The gentleman in black next to the.
Hello, sir. My question to you is that, as we all know, that India has emerged as a knowledge hub for the whole world. With that, we have also become an outsourcing hub for the world. At this point, we are outsourcing services, and the companies outside are willing to get our services because it is getting feasible for them. Because we have ample amount of knowledge and ample amount of people who can use that knowledge in a productive manner. How do you think that we as a nation will develop to empower the people with knowledge so that the companies don't just use them because they can work at a cheaper rate, but we value them because of the skill set they have, because of the knowledge they have actually attained in the IT sector?
So first of all, we don't have knowledge in everything. We have knowledge in certain areas only. Second, we are lower cost. I don't want to use the word cheaper because we are a lower cost economy. Today, the per capita income in India is $3,000. Per capita income in the US is $40,000 plus, right? So you can imagine a best paid software engineer in India will still be 1/5 or 1/6 or 1/10 of the best paid software engineer in the US. That is why it is lower cost. It's quote unquote cheaper. It's not because you're paying that person lower. That person is still the highest paid probably in India. Okay? Now, are they being appreciated? They're tremendously being appreciated by every company that's employing them. Okay, I can tell you the reason why the world comes to India is because they appreciate the talent that's available in India. And they know that it's available only in India, in abundance actually. So that's the reason they come to, they do appreciate, Indians are appreciated. The respect for Indian professionals is very high in the world. It's our responsibility to make sure that we deliver and we stand up to that responsibility. It's very important.
Good afternoon, sir. Jayanth.
Yeah.
So here, down.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sir, according to you, do you think that management will see an evolution or a complete transformation after 10 years? And young children or young business, say, learners like us, how should we upskill ourselves and get ourselves future ready for this?
Just like any other field, I believe management field is evolving continuously. It's not standing still. Our knowledge and use of technology, etc., is changing. The field also. Probably a better person to answer is Professor Raghuram, former director at Bangalore, who is sitting right up front. And so you may want to talk to him after this session.
Okay, one last question. Okay, sorry, we'll have to take it offline. We'll have to take gentleman in specs straight up.
First of all, good afternoon, sir. Myself, Yash Balan, undergraduate student at IIT Madras. First of all, glad to know about your campus experience and wants to know about how should the young and new age entrepreneurs should balance the need for the short-term profitability along with the long-term sustainability and growth, especially in the today's fastly paced business environment, and how did you able to achieve that as your experience?
I'll give you a very short answer for lack of time. You have to find out how to balance this, short term versus long term. And that's the trick, really. If you are unable to do that, if you only focus on the long term, you'll fail in the short term. If you focus only in the short term, you'll fail in the long term. It is about having some goals in life and working towards those goals on a daily basis. So, for example, if your goal in life is good health, right? Then daily you have to make sure that you eat healthy, you exercise, you sleep, all those things, right? But that has to be daily. You can't say, this 1 month I will not do any of those things. Then you will fall sick the next month. So your long-term goal is gone. Right? A long-term goal always breaks down into small-time goals every single day that you have to achieve. And that's how you need to look at it.
It's called marathon of sprints. Okay, think of running 42 kilometers.
So that's why
with
he's a
100
writer.
meters.
He's a writer.
Okay, one last question, and this is from me. And this question can be answered by very few people around the world, and I have the opportunity, and you are one of them. Sir,
I'm one of them. Okay. What answer you decided?
I'm an analyst. I connect the dots and do trend analysis for a living. One of the trend that I observed is every 100 or so years, mankind has been, transferring one of human agencies and faculties to machines. 200 years ago in industrial era, with all the tools, all the machinery and the vehicles, all the work that we were doing with our hands and legs, our limbs, has been transferred to the machines. Then 100 years ago, with the early stages research and work in human psyche, human mind understanding with Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, and a few decades later, artificial intelligence coming, and the last few decades all about being knowledge, work, and intelligence capital. Now, artificial intelligence has hit the inflection point. Everything that we used to do with our mind is now being transferred to the machines. By the same trend, the next human agency or faculty where we need to understand a lot is probably the next frontier, which is human consciousness. Okay, and the science and the technology that might take it to the machines would be probably quantum physics and quantum computing. In your understanding and opinion, how is India placed for the next century for understanding the human consciousness, spirituality, and then probably transferring it to the machines through those two, science and technology, quantum?
See, first of all, in most cases, in most of these examples, the old has not gone away completely. It's just coexisting with the new, So, all the things that you talked about in terms of, how manual work, how labor, how transportation, logistics, everything is mechanized, but all of that is still coexisting with AI, machine learning.
Correct.
We leverage this technology to make these things better, faster, cheaper, better.
Right.
So the faster, cheaper, better will be a continuous process in the future. Now, overlaying with this, new things like human-machine communication,
Yeah.
right? Human-machine interface. Can our thought process be transferred, and in what form can we transfer this? And our knowledge in these areas is definitely increasing as we understand life, as we understand man, as we understand our brain better.
Right.
Is starting to happen, and this is again a continuous process. I strongly believe that one of the last unknown is understanding the brain
Right.
itself, because we still haven't fully understood the brain.
I agree.
So this is an ongoing thing. Will it happen 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now? I don't know. But what I know is that India cannot be behind.
Right.
Which means that India must do world-class research. See, till now, our investment in research has been behind.
Yeah.
We were benefiting from knowledge transferred from outside the country, building things based on that knowledge. So somebody talked about outsourcing. So to that extent, we are actually using the knowledge that was created somewhere else, but applying it very well. Applying it very well through our educational system and our business practices and things like that. But that is not sufficient. We need to create new knowledge. We need to do research, fundamental research, basic research, applied research in this country. And that is how we keep up. And if we don't do that, we will probably be very good at using iPhones. The market cap is created, the wealth is created somewhere else in the world. A billion, so Apple is coming out with the iPhone 15,
15. Yeah.
on September 12th. A billion Indians, maybe 500 million Indians or 50 million Indians, I don't know what is the number, will buy the new iPhone 15. Apple's market cap will go up by another $1 trillion.
Another trillion, yeah.
Wealth is created somewhere else.
Yeah.
We better learn that and say, how can we create that in India? That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir.
A greater round of applause, everybody. Come on. Thank you so much for this thought-absorbing session, sir. We now have a small token of appreciation from our side. So I would like to call Mr. Sudhakar Rao to please present our speaker and moderator with this token of appreciation. A round of applause, everybody.